Yeah.
Guys, you're on recording.
Hi everyone, my name is Dinesh here. I'm here from Property for Financial Freedom. We are a buyer agent buying properties all over Australia. On this call, I have Vinay, who has done few rooming house projects in the past, and he is going to share his experience about his journey today on this call. And we have aspiring buyers agents from all over Australia on this call. Everyone is doing great job. So before we start, I would like to thanks Vinay to give the precious time to us and uh, sharing the knowledge, which is very going to be good. It's a rooming house is basically very good high cash flow strategy, and it's getting very popular these days. So it is going to be very interesting to see what was your experience in that field. Welcome, Vinay. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Dinesh. And thank you, everyone. Hello, my name is Vinay, and I really, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you for giving me an opportunity to present whatever little I know about this investment strategy. So, just a disclaimer: this is by no means any advice. It is just what I have experienced, and based on my practical experiences and exposure in this area is what I'm sharing today. So we'll get started. Um, a little bit about me. By profession, I'm a software engineer. Usually people start calling you, you're a developer or whatever investor. I think I'm more of a learner because learning never stops, and no matter whether you develop or whether you invest or whatever you do. And pretty much on my way to acquire my sales agent, buyer's agent license in Victoria. Have not been there yet, but I'm almost there. So that's a little bit about me. What is a rooming house basically? In general terms, a rooming house is a property where more than three, basically four or more unrelated people can occupy the rented rooms, which means anyone can occupy, but they have their own tenancy agreements. This is a definition what I know of in Victoria. There are different definitions according to different states. In Adelaide, I think more than two. They qualify, like, if technically, if a person is putting more than two unrelated people under the same roof, then it has to be licensed rooming house, approved by the relevant authorities. But in Victoria, the definition is minimum four, more than three. Um, it is neither a bread and breakfast nor an Airbnb type of accommodation. People think, is it another bread and breakfast or Airbnb type? People can come in, occupy a room, and go away. No, it is not. It is not a short stay type of accommodation. There is very fine difference between, and these are constituted as different type of accommodations when we look it from the lens of policy matter. Typical length of the lease spans across 3 to 12 months. Minimum 3 period is a lease for a rooming house to operate. And typical characteristics of a rooming house is, um, it should have communal facilities, which means a communal kitchen and a communal laundry at the least. And in fact, some of the rooming houses do have shared toilets too. Um, and um, there is a lot of focus on having, this compliance to DDA, which is Disability Discrimination Act 1992. We call it DDA. So every rooming house must have at least one accessible room. People get it wrong. People think it is SDA, it is NDS. This is for disabled. Those who don't know, it is it is a requirement for any rooming house. It doesn't mean that the house is meant for a different class of people, but that's where it is. Technically, a rooming house, how do we identify what is a rooming, which one is a rooming house, which one is a normal house? So a residential house is classified as class 1A under building national construction code. A rooming house is classified as one class 1B under NCC. So based on that, you would hear people saying, "Oh, I'm building a 1B. I'm doing, rooming house," and there are various last names. People call it boarding house, student accommodation, co-living home, shared living home, self-contained studio accommodation. Uh, but all of them, by definition, they are the same. Guys, I mean, you are more than welcome to ask any questions if you have on the way, but there will definitely be a separate dedicated session after I deliver my presentation. So you can either choose to hold your questions for that session, or you can ask me on the way as well.
Definitely, Vinay. After you finish your presentation, we may go for question answers for 10-15 minutes. Yeah,
Sounds good. So, rooming house, so far, by and large, when we talk about a rooming house, as I was saying, that it is also called boarding house, it is also termed as commission houses, commission housing board, and whatever else, the first impression that we get, a rooming house is a massive rundown, old houses, only meant for homeless people, and it is usually, for the people on government benefits, or it is only meant for students, who are usually okay to compromise if they get a cheap accommodation. That's the first thing. By and large, I'm not generalizing, but by and large, that's the, oh, there is a rooming, or there is a boarding house down the lane. Yeah, I keep seeing questions from people. Oh, I'm looking to buy an investment property, but it's area full of commission house, and so is it worth buying there? So that's the impression we have got, and there is nothing wrong in that. Also, if you do a quick search right now with me, rooming house on Google, the first definition on Wikipedia you get is: a rooming house, also called multi-tenanted house, is a dwelling with multiple rooms rented out individually, in which the tenants share bathroom. They have labeled it already, like uh, tenants have to share bathroom, right, in the definition. And also, rooming house are often used for housing for low income people. They have labeled very well, it is for tenants who can share bathrooms. And so, and as rooming houses are the least expensive housing for single adults, there is a partial truth in that, but least expensive, I kind of, so we'll see as we go along. So these are the notions in the mind, and even the definitions talk about, similar things. But, and you see, everywhere in the past, the rooming houses are like this. However, this is a modern rooming house, guys, and it is one of the various configurations. It's a double story, and we'll see what all it has got. But look at the contrast, the modern rooming house that we're talking about today, and the notions we have in the past. And one of the missions I'm also on is to break that notion, and also add to the society in different ways. We'll talk about all of that in a while. So modern rooming house, another example, another configuration. So this is basically a screenshot of my own build. Basically, these unique dwellings look like a standard residential property on the outside, and are designed to blend into the streetscape and aesthetics of area. But on the inside, each studio room is completely independent. What it means is that each studio has their own living area, their own kitchenette, their own ensuite. All tenants have access to another fully equipped shared kitchen and laundry. Ground floor rooms open to a small private courtyard, and upper floors room may have a small private balcony. So that's the smart rooming house, that you do these days. Um, why rooming house? Like any other investment, strategy, this is one of the strategies. This is not the only strategy. This is one of the investment vehicles, investment strategy usually people adopt, and these are high cash flow properties. But again, there is another notion that these are only high cash flow properties. But that's not true actually. We'll see why I say that. So what is in there? What is the opportunity size for this kind of investment? Let's have a look. This is a source from ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics. How many rooming houses do we have in Victoria? In 2022, the state recorded 1,385 rooming houses locations. registered with Consumer Affairs, the figure makes up to only 0.5% of all homes. So it is safe to say owning one would certainly put you in a very exclusive group of investors. Yeah. Only 5% of dwellings in the country have one bedroom. So many are forced to share accommodation with others to stay at home with mom and dad to save money. Rooming house satisfy this segment of renters basically who want to go out but they don't have many options. Rooming house is one of those solutions for this kind of market. Achieving independence is a significant milestone for a younger generation today, especially as over 50% of 18 to 29 years old are still living at home because they don't have a choice. A rooming house will typically be cheaper to rent than a standard one bedroom apartment, but still provides the freedom they desire. You know, what is the demand for tenancy? So usually people say, you know what, we understand all of that, but do they really sell? Yes, they do. According to the latest census data, 2.3 million Australians are living in a single person household. That is one in every four people. Between 3 to 3.5 million people are projected to be living alone in 2041, which is up 2.3 million in 2016. That's an increase between 32 to 53%. So the demand, the demographics that we are seeing these days, the young crowd, for all these reasons, they want independence, they are forced to stay. So there will be a projected growth in number of people seeking such kind of accommodations. Um, oh, sorry, what did I do actually? Okay, so further going opportunity size, this is a Hume housing diversity strategy done by Hume Council. And if you look at the potential housing mismatch in Hume in 2011, 2016, 2026, and 2041, you can see the gap is increasing. The need in 2011 was 22,450, uh, 25,000, 39,000. By 2041, it is more than double, two and a half times. This is the need. Supply. Look at the supply equation. 4,400, 5,000, roughly one fifth, 9,000, again roughly one fourth. You know, and 15,000 is gonna they are gonna be available by 2041. So look at the gap. Potential mismatch is already called out here. 17,000, 18,000, roughly 20,000 homes, housing not available, and come 2041, roughly 40,000 homes will be required to meet that demand. And this is done, so much money has been spent to do this analysis. um, and look at the percentage of unmet need, 80%, pretty much standard across the board. um, and yeah, so that's the kind of demand we can see now and in the future. Another chart to show you need versus supply. The increasing small housing mismatch over the time, you can see the gap is increasing, as I just showed you in the statistics. So this is just a graphical representation of what I showed you, the numbers. Number of lone and couple only households minus number of small dwellings equal to potential mismatch. Um, so what sort of renters do we attract? What are the demographics of someone has sent a chat. You're gonna want to. Thanks, Rohit. What sort of demographics do we talk about? Usually people say, you know what, as I was, again, no offense, but as I was saying, people have a notion that there is only a specific demographic that usually, are well suited for this kind of accommodation, but that's not true. This is all based on the study. So students and young people, they prefer one or two bedroom. If they're couple, two bedroom, but most probably, if they're singles, they would prefer one bedroom rather than getting into a home with a family. Older people, one or two bedrooms, first home buyers, depending upon if they're starting a family or they're couple or they're single. And Parent families, obviously 2 or 3 bedroom, divorces, separated, 1 to 3, empty nesters, 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom. So the point I'm trying to make here is that there is a wider market than what we think, and all they are chasing 1 bedroom independence plus an affordable freedom at affordable price. Yeah, that's common across, and we'll see why it is affordable. We'll see going forward. What else we have got? So what is in for investors, guys? So this is the demand side of things. We understand there's a demand, there is a need, and there is a cause that we can support. But what, as an investor, what is there for us? There are many advantages which make rooming houses a great investment. Offers a great rental yield between 9 to 12%. Now, this is subjective, again, based on so many factors. Uh, but if you have done it right, if you have got it right, if you know what you're doing, it could even very well go above that range as well. And I have done everything that I've done so far, that they all sit in this range. And what I'm doing right now, they are all even above that range as well. So that's the rental yield we can expect. And like any other investment strategy, we chase the rental yields. Anything above 4.5-5% we consider as a really really good investment vehicle. Then you can imagine, if we are talking about this range, what we are talking about here, right? There's a huge demand for the rooms, and they are often completely rented within a few days, rather than most of the properties have a waiting list. And that's all that you see here is what is my personal, experience that I've put on this, right? There's a great range of young professional tenants applying for these rooms, and they are all ideal tenants for anyone, basically. Due to fixtures and fittings, there's a huge tax depreciation. Obviously, I don't think this is a selling point. This is a byproduct, I would say. Besides great rental yields, you can also, enjoy the huge depreciation benefits as well. The risk of vacant properties are minimal. You are dividing your risk by 5/9. If you're doing a 5 bedder, you're doing 9 bedder, you're doing in between, you can see your risk of vacancy goes by that factor, because there are multiple tenants. If one goes out, you have 8 others, two goes out, you have 7 others, so on and so forth. Generally, only one set of rates payable. Usually, if you do a 9 apartment building, or a 5 apartment building, or a two townhouse, or two townhouse, or a three townhouse, or they all have, this comes as by default. You have separate rates, and all those liabilities. Technically, if you're going a bit technical into, if we do it, um, I think George is joining. Let's have him. Hey, George. If we are talking about doing it right, there are several opportunities where you will have opportunity to bypass a lot of administrative work, which is about planning permit. We all know, we all are doing developments. If we get into that planning permit mode, there's time goes out of hands, and expenses and all of that. So a similar apartment development would incur massive fees. Cost comparison of building 5 or 9 single bedrooms is much higher than doing a single 9 bedroom rooming house. Now, who says, I challenge, people say, there is always either a cash flow strategy or a capital growth strategy. There are, I see a lot of people saying, yes, no, both can be achieved. But at least for this strategy, if you have bought right, if you know where to buy, what to buy, and what proportion, of land, and those sort of things, then definitely you can achieve significant capital growth, as well as much as the rental yield. So these are few benefits for the investors. Now there are various ways to build rooming house. You can do conversions, retrofitting, which is like taking old home and then looking at the feasibility and this is example, you don't see this very often. Like this looks very lucrative, but there's a lot involved in this. There are conversions, retrofittings, there are new constructions. I don't go into conversions, retrofittings at all. I go into conversions only. I mean, new build constructions only. But yeah, there are people who kind of get into this, which is another good way to build your cash flow, properties, positive cash flow properties. So this is again a screenshot of one of my own builds. Basically, it is a 5 micro apartments, single level, and this is another one for my own build, which is a 9 micro apartment, single level again. Um, this is how a typical room looks like, from inside, and so there are various design variations you can do. You can do single level, 9 bedrooms, 9 ensuite. You can do single level, 9 rooms, shared bathrooms. You can do single level, 5 bedroom, 5 ensuites. There are various other variations that you can do, and all this depends upon various factors. Basically, what sort of market you are targeting. A lot of people, when you say rooming house or co-living, they think it's a student accommodation and anything can sell. Just build something there and they'll be happy to compromise, as I was telling earlier. That's not the case. Every market is different. Every mm, build can be built in a lot different ways, which could be heavily dependent on which market you're targeting, demographics as well as locations, and class of renters that you are targeting. So based on that, you can do various variations, basically. Um, am I going too fast, guys? Or it's all good?
That seems all good,
All
Vinay.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few considerations. It looks great, obviously, but at the same time, there are quite a few considerations that as an investor, one should think about. And uh, this is not, again, that's just my view. This is not meant for just any investor. Usually investing in rooming houses is well suited for very seasoned investors, usually less preferred and suited for first, second, third time investors. So if it's a first home buyer, obviously they wouldn't go for it. But if it's a second property or maybe even third, there are various reasons for that. When we get into a lot detail, we'll be able to understand um, that it is not not suited, but usually practically less preferred by second or third time investors. um, it requires a specialist domain knowledge. It's not gig for everyone, to be honest. Not to say that anyone can do it, but it definitely requires a specialist domain knowledge. It requires you should know, mm, you should have people by your side. Either you should know yourself, building act, building regulations, NCC codes, state planning schemes. For example, doing something in Victoria is a lot different than doing a rooming house in New South Wales, than in South Australia, than in Western Australia. So state planning schemes come into play. What can you do? What you can't do? Even in Queensland, I'm doing quite a few. I'm now diversifying. I have done quite a few here in Victoria, and I'm started looking into South Australia, Queensland, as well as not so much in New South Wales, because it's a different turf there from the policy matter perspective. But definitely going out and looking what I can do in Western Australia, South Australia, as well as in Queensland. So municipal planning scheme, a lot of different aspects are involved, basically to ride on this. Basically, property management is another thing that we all need to think about as an investor. This property management is not done by just anyone. You can't pick up a property manager who manages our regular residential buildings. It requires a special license. more than the license, it requires special skills, because you can imagine the kind of turnout, you know, someone coming in, someone going out, 9 people living together, and then managing, their expectations, managing a cohesive environment and whatnot, so it requires specialist, property management skills as well, um, to get through this smoothly for years. Funding is complex as well. The funding for rooming house projects is literally complex. LVR is usually between 65 to 70%, and could depend highly on individual's financial position, but that's the range one should look at. And then it is commercial lending. Funding is complex. Not many lenders on the market are there to fund the rooming house projects. Uh, People say, rooming all are very different, very difficult, NDS very difficult. But to me, this can't be compared with NDS. NDS is, again, from the funding perspective, is very complex, or not many lenders out there, and whatever else, high build cost. But this is still a different gig than NDS. So it is wrong to put both from the funding perspective in the same, but it is relatively complex, the funding for rooming house. As I said, mostly the funding is provided as a commercial lending. Uh, else we have got. Mm, Guys, that's all I have for today. I'm happy to take any questions. I mean, it is quite a vast field
Yeah,
we can talk about in detail, but I didn't know what sort of interest people may have, so I've
yeah.
just kept it to this level. More than happy to answer any questions
Mm. That
anyone
was
may
great,
have.
Vinay, actually. Thanks. It was a great presentation. We have a couple of hands raised already. So
Please.
we'll go with Rohit first. Rohit, please ask your question.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Vinay and Dinesh. So, Vinay, it was a great, and I think this is my first exposure to rooming houses. So, I do have a client who is very keen in buying an Airbnb accommodation. So, this could be potentially a good alternative for him with potentially less risk, I would say, right? Because you are diversifying your risk with n number of
Yeah,
tenants out there,
yeah.
and this is potentially like longer tenancy periods than an Airbnb. So
Hmm.
I got a couple of questions for you. So one is regarding the property management. So assuming the complexity and the way they have to manage these many tenants. So what are the usual property management rates in terms of percentage?
Usually between 20% to 22%, or maybe 23%, 22, anything between 20 to 25%.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so and like say for example you mentioned that your exposure has been more onto the new builds rather than doing those conversions in
Yep,
existing, right?
yep.
So once you build a rooming house from scratch and basically a brand new, then it will then be always sold as a rooming house, right? So is there a potential of, or do you ever think of converting it back to a normal home for sale, or like how does it all going to work out tomorrow as an investor if you want to offload that investment property? Uh, what strategies
I
would
appreciate
you?
this question, and the
Yeah.
question itself tells me that it is coming from a buyer's agent.
Okay.
Because
Yes.
every investment strategy has to have an exit strategy before you put your foot into it, right? So
Yep.
there are obviously a very exclusive pool of buyers when we talk about the potential resale of these houses. But there are two
Mm-hmm.
facts I want to call out. First of all, um, these properties go out in the market and look at history, go in the future after 2 years as well. These properties, first of all, never come to the market. These properties never um, openly, why? They
Mm-hmm.
are cash cows. First of all,
Yep.
people build it, they never sell it. Why
Mm-hmm.
would someone sell a cash cow which is minting money for them month on month, all expense paid? But still, there could be reasons for people to sell. I totally get it. And then there are exclusive, because the demand supply ratio. If there is less supply, more demand, anything will
Yep.
sell. That's one answer to your question.
Yeah.
Second, there are ways to, for example, one of my builds in Metro Melbourne, what I've done a 5 bedroom, 5 ensuite. Perfect. The design that I've done, it's a perfect um, owner occupier spiel. To be honest, so if I don't tell you, I take you in that house, I don't tell you what it is, and I say it is for sale, if you were first home buyer, you will fall in love. Uh, because the specs that I've built are to suit an owner occupier, but it is a 5 income stream as well for me, which means tomorrow, if I have to exit that, 5 bedroom house is a common thing. It's these days, right?
Yep.
Not so much 9 bedroom, but 5 bedroom is right. So I have built that with a mind that tomorrow if I have to exit for whatever reason, you know I have vast pool of buyers, not only the investors, they will be on occupiers who will be happy to occupy 322 and remaining two bedrooms with 2 ensuite, who would not want as a renter. So you enjoy your 322 bedroom, the way it has been designed, the inclusions, the specs, even everything basically. So
Yep.
that is one of the ways basically, and there are other ways, obviously based on the design, based on quite a few other things. There can be good exit strategies as well. Obviously, location is one another thing, that matters a lot,
Yep.
which is at the core of any investment, right? So
Yep.
does that
Yeah,
answer your
this is
question?
interesting. Yeah, it does. It does. So this is an interesting piece, like where you can build something as a rooming accommodation, but tomorrow it can be easily converted to appeal and owner occupier. So
Yeah,
thanks,
and the way
thanks.
I've
This is
built, you
very,
don't
very
need
great.
to
Yeah.
do anything. That's the
Oh,
beauty.
yeah. That's
Not
amazing.
even
Yeah.
single thing you have to take off or take on. You just stop the licensing, don't
Yep.
register it next year. That becomes your normal house.
Ah, okay. So th that basically is my following question. So when you say licensing, so is it like are there too many regulation or licensing to be done each year, or and
There is a
what's the
license.
usual cost?
The cost of licensing, you mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Is it
So
too costly, or it could be just a couple of
no, no,
hundred
no,
or
it is
$1,000?
not. It is not. Government has a council has a fee, a yearly fee for renewing your license. And
Hmm.
it goes also, this question goes back to your question about the rooming house management fee. So there are two models. One is all done for you. Property manager uh, does it for you on outcome basis. Like basically they are the operators. They hold the
Yep.
license their name, which means all the legal liabilities are on their shoulders. That is where that fee I spoke to you about, right? Other is
Hmm.
you become your own, I become my own license operator. I get my own license, which means property manager will come. They will come and they will run just like any other property for you, but all the legal liabilities are with you. And it's a highly regulated area. There are people who prefer, by giving everything or running their own license, or running rooming house on their own license. Some prefer running on property managers. I go with approach too. I don't do it on my name. I can do it,
Yep.
but there are my own reasons I don't do it.
Yep. Yep.
So back to your question, licensing fee is not much. No.
Okay. Yep. Thanks. And another question is regarding car parks. So how do you manage the car park? For five, it might still be possible but for a house having 9 rooms and 9 different tenants, and assuming like even half of them have got cars, how's it all managed?
Yeah, there are planning schemes, that guide you how much is a requirement and how to go about. Again, it comes to your design and how
Yep.
you get over it. There are ways, not to say we will circumvent that requirement.
Hmm.
First, planning scheme defines what is the requirement, and then in your design you incorporate in a way that you fulfill those requirements.
Okay. So are you required to provide car park for each of the
Yes.
tenant? Oh,
No,
you are. Okay.
every state is different. In Victoria, you don't have to provide for everyone. But again, council to council, location of the property. Now this is where we are getting shifting gears into technicalities, which is good.
Mhm.
Sometimes even if there is technically by planning scheme there is no requirement, and you are satisfying the not no requirement, but you are satisfying the requirement, your proposal could still be under the water. Council could very well object based on where the location is, what objections are coming,
Mhm.
and so yeah, that's why it looks good, but you should know what you're doing and how to get over
Yep.
it, yeah.
Okay. Thanks. So, is this strategy more popular in any state, or this is being used across Australia?
It is across Australia, uh,
Mhm.
but as I said, every state is different.
Yep.
I find legislative requirements in New South Wales are very typical. Not that people don't do it there, but their good side to that is that there are bigger boarding houses of 20 bedroom, 25 bedroom, 30 bedroom they allow. But every state you can do it in every state, but governing laws for every state are different. So it's not the same turf, it's not the same pitch to play on
Yep.
when it comes to I have done a
Okay.
lot of
Yep.
exposure, I have done a lot of studies. Victoria is very viable, that's why I focus here. But
Yep.
now other part of the strategy is you need to diversify, so that's why I'm going out. And I know South Australia and um, Western Australia are also kind of viable. I need to study more how much
Yep.
viable they are. But yeah,
Yep, yep. Thanks. So I think I'll give others an opportunity, but
Yeah.
before I jump off, just a last question. Maybe in the end, if you can cover, I would appreciate if you can just run numbers of any of the project that you have done, where you can just give on a higher level, like
sure,
how much that the land cost,
sure,
construction cost, and what were the yields, so that
sure,
it
sure,
all makes a bit more sense.
sure,
Awesome.
Thanks, Vinay.
Thanks,
sure.
Rohit. Was great. Great questions. We'll try to cover that in the end. And the other last question. The Sapta is the next one. Sapta, if you want
Yes,
to
Sapta.
ask your question.
Yeah, hi Vinay, thanks for the informative session. So my question is like earlier you mentioned the need to comply with the Disability Discrimination Act, right? So is this only applicable for rooming house projects or is it for Airbnb as well?
Uh, I am not exposed to Airbnb, so I
Oh,
can't comment on that area to be honest.
okay, okay,
Mm,
okay, fine.
yeah.
So is it like, have you compared the rental yields between Airbnb and rooming house? Before, uh, you might have done some analysis, right?
No, no, not really.
Okay, okay,
Mm,
okay. Thank you.
all good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sapta. Next one is Jatin. Jatin, if you can unmute and ask your questions.
Please.
Yeah, thanks, Dinesh. Thanks, Vinay. I think thank you for that information. I think that is great. My question is, Vinay, when you live, I guess in an estate, right, where I guess the townhouses are not allowed, like townhouses are not allowed to build, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
How does this rooming house, like, do the council let you build a rooming house in a estate, or are there any, I guess, you know specific estates where you obviously seek a permission from the council before you start building it?
sure. Look, very good question. Thanks, Jatin. Uh, by and large, and there are always exceptions. By
Hmm.
and large, in new estates, these kind of developments can't be done. But in saying that, I did one in new estates as well in Metro Melbourne. So in saying
Okay.
that, um, there are developer restrictions, right?
Hmm.
And there are again zoning things, there are some overlay things. So putting all that into perspective, you need to see overall, site selection. Then added complexity is the developer requirements, and then developer might not even allow because private private estates, as I said, it has got its own taboo, and developer is the king for the private estates, right? They can have their own MCP on top of, their, so as part of guidelines. So short answer is usually these kind of developments are not much seen in newer estates, but that is not to say they can't be done case by case basis.
So in that case, would you reach out to your developer or would you reach out to the council directly?
First of all, you will check before buying what you're buying, what the developer
Mhm.
guidelines are. And from there, that will be your starting point. You will see what is in there. If it is black and white, you don't even need to reach out to developer. If it is kind of convoluted, it's not clear, then you go out to developer and seek, yes, formal, yes, is this is what I want to do. Would you allow? And then comes the council.
Right. Okay. And just one last thing. And I understand Rohit has already asked you about the obviously the dimensions of the land, I guess the size of the land, and what you need. Uh, but do you actually need? Uh, can it be sort of? Uh, can it be done on a disputed land?
Can anything be done on a disputed land? Let me ask you.
Well, the thing is, see, that's what I'm saying because I've in Adelaide, I'm talking about. There was someone who was sort of doing a project, uh, and it was on a disputed land, but I think somehow they settled it. I don't know what happened, sort of under the table, um, but they sort of they built a house and they they um they sold it for a. I mean, they did the renovation, they did all the renovation and all that, and then they sold it off, and they made a good money out of it. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking. Can it be done? I know it's sort of legislation varies from state to state. Um, but have you ever come across with that sort of?
So if I understand your question correctly, what your question is, um, say you started doing something and that then this development from your perspective, you ticked all the boxes, and
Mm,
then someone raised an objection. It could be council, it could be developer, it could be someone else. It
yeah.
got into dispute whether that still can go ahead as a development or not is your question, or are there chances of getting this into a dispute or someone
Mm.
coming in and raising objections? Is that what your question is?
I guess yes. I think you touched it correctly here because the fact is that see, I live in a sort of state where I received a letter the other day from the council that somebody else has started building this, and if you have any objection, you can contest it or you can write it us in writing, and we'll take it further.
So what
Right?
is that someone has started doing this, what, a rooming house?
No, it's not. No, it's not necessarily a rooming house. It's a sort of a project that could sort of impact your
So,
property.
so sorry, if I understand correctly, all that you're talking about is a regular process. Any development do you do if go through a planning permit process,
Yeah,
there are public notices issued, neighbors being sent letters asking their opinion and this and that and whatnot. So
yeah.
this has nothing specific to do with rooming houses. Any rooming houses in any other development, like if it has to go through planning permit, all that process comes into picture. And I have had enough of that's a good question. So in one of my builds, I had enough with and every possible person on that street, whether someone had any business to do with this or not. Immediate neighbors, I understand, but anyone else, a lot of people, they had a lot of objections. I confronted in a positive, constructed way and hired my
Mhm.
own professionals and sorted it. But yes, there is a chance. It can. You have to
There is
feel.
a possibility, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Um, yeah. No, that's all. Thanks, Vinay. Thanks a
Sure.
lot.
Thanks, Jatin. That was good questions. Last, like a couple of questions from my side, Vinay. So when you pick up an area like, okay, I'm going to build a house in that area, how do you generally pick that area? What's the criteria you follow to pick that area?
So again, depending upon so basically, the demographics that you want to. So first of all, it all starts at at a larger level. You know,
Yeah.
Metro Melbourne or Victoria or at a Queensland, like at a state level, right? So
Mm,
let's say we say Victoria. So Victoria, okay. So Victoria Metro or regional, right? Now,
mm,
no, regional, not Metro. Okay, Metro, for example. Then Metro
mm,
Northeast, Southeast. So you build. First of all, and it all depends upon, so a lot has to also depend upon the numbers. You will have to see, it's a quite complicated question. So picking up area is a fine balance of, number one, what
mm,
sort of demographics you want to target, right?
mm,
So you need to go and pick that pocket. What sort of, so if I was looking for factory workers, right, because I have a different configuration in mind, my different budget, and what I
mm,
want to achieve that goal, right? Like
mm.
any, like how you ask your clients about their goals, right? So
Yeah.
someone says, how do you pick areas? There's no one
Mm,
answer. Yes, something
yeah.
suitable for a client in Queensland might not be suitable for South someone, right?
Yeah.
But generally, you pick your market first, and
Yeah.
then you see your numbers, what
Mm-hmm.
numbers work for you.
Yeah.
Based on that, you need to find the sites, and
Mm,
then generally, if for example, you were looking, for example, for my builds, I only do high specs. I only
mm-hmm.
do 9 bedroom. I only do not with onset, no shared facilities, and
Mm-hmm.
I look for white collared professionals, right?
Yeah.
No
Makes
offense
sense.
against anyone, but that's my target market, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I look for likes of retail, presence where you have retail jobs, hospitals,
Mm,
education institutes, because student is one side of the equation. There are teachers who will be traveling, coming
mm,
in, people
mm,
need. So usually my builds have been around area where doctors, professionals would need,
mm,
and obviously, there are associated other professions as well, nurses and all of that, right? So,
yeah.
so depending upon who you want to target, what you need to build, what is your budget, you need to run
Yeah.
your numbers and see there is a land component, there's a build component,
Yeah.
and there's no secret about build component going
Mm,
exponentially high, like, so you
mm,
need to look for what land component you want to spend,
mm,
what you want to spend on the land component, and together build plus land, how
yeah.
much it is going to cost, how much you can rent for,
Yeah.
right? Coming back to
Yeah.
Rohit's question, right?
Yeah.
If you put all of that into equation,
Yeah.
that brings
Uh,
sort of, areas you want to target,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah. When we buy for our clients, basically, we look into data sources where the demand is, demand to supply ratio, online search interest, many other data sectors, right?
Sure.
Is there any data source which provide information? Okay, this area have more demand and less supply
Sure.
for specifically in rooming houses.
Sure, it's no brainer, to be honest. Go to flatmates.com.au, go to
Yeah.
Gumtree,
Yeah.
and search for 1 bedroom um, available accommodations, and search for how
Hmm.
many are seeking. You
Yeah.
will get
Okay.
you will get to know.
That's good one.
And I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
right now where we are, you know,
Hmm.
again, I'm not generalizing, guys. You need to do your own diligence, and it could be general statement as well. Um, but um, if looking at the rental crisis we are talking about,
Yeah.
looking at the independence, need for independence, m- a lot of areas, not all, I would say, I would be very cautious saying any area pick up and you will be okay,
Mm,
but a lot of areas will qualify for, this kind of, because, and depending upon what you build, that is very important as well. Just not
mm,
building 9 rooms is not enough. Then you might
mm,
go wrong. People might not, or even if they come in, they might leave, after
mm,
3 months, 6 months. So you want, because it is more overhead for you, more, many times rooms will be empty, people will be looking to come in, going out, tenancy
mm,
agreements, rental, letting fee, this, a lot of overheads. So you want to
yeah.
build in an area where there will be a
Mm,
good renters.
mm,
Now, good doesn't mean elite class only. Good can be anyone, but
mm,
who they are and how much they can pay, and you don't want much turnouts. That you will control by what you build, right?
yeah.
So those sort of
Sounds
things.
good.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks,
Sure.
Vinay. Like we have 3 minutes left now. I would like to go back to Rohit's question. If you can just give overall picture of your one. Okay, we have another question from Dan. He had
Yes,
a
please.
hand raised. Like Dan, if you can unmute,
Yeah, no
then
worries.
we go to the last
No worries.
question.
Okay, thank you so much for that, man. That was very informative.
Yeah,
This is just a personal question for myself. I've got a property in St. Albans, right? So I was just weighing options, and this is the first time I'm hearing about rooming opportunities, right? So I was just thinking that I'm going to knock down my current house and build in a couple of townhouses, right? So what is the process of doing feasibility for someone like myself to see whether this is a better option versus another option?
Yeah, if you have knowledge, then obviously you should start looking at, the requirements, what you want to build, and then how much land you have got, and then are there any easements, like any home, right?
Yep.
But if you don't know, then zoning, then a lot of other things. But if you don't know, then have a professional by your side who knows, about it, who can handhold you and help you out in doing a feasibility of this.
So who is that professional? Is it a developer? Who's that?
You BAs are supposed to be professionals,
Okay,
business
okay.
buyer's agent,
yeah,
because this is one of the hot investment vehicles for many, right?
yeah,
So if you don't have a buyer's agent, then yeah, you need to find who who
yeah,
who can actually help.
yeah. Vinay can be your buyer agent once he get the license. Then, like, reach
Yeah.
out to
And I
him.
mean,
You
I
know.
was just thinking about my own property.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm a buyer's agent. Like I'm working
yeah.
towards getting my license
Yeah,
as well.
but yeah, I think by holding someone else who already did those kind of
Yeah.
projects and licensed, gonna help you long term. There are a
That
lot of
exactly,
hurdles
exactly.
when you go council approvals, when get into some legality, anything. Once you have a experienced team behind you, that can be very helpful. Basically,
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
So
going back.
that's what I was gonna. Sorry, that's what
Yeah,
I was asking.
yeah, yeah,
So are you
yeah.
available for to help out, Vinay, or like
Sure, no
like
problem. Yeah,
immediately?
yeah, you can
Okay.
get in touch with me, send me an email, right? Call me, we can discuss.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
Going back to Jatin. Jatin, your hand is raised. Is there any other question? It's just you didn't turn it off.
No, I didn't turn it off. No, that's all for me. Thank you. Thanks,
Awesome.
Dinesh.
Thank you. Yeah, going back to Rohit's question to wrap that up, Vinay, and then we can finish this call.
Sure. So numbers, very good question. I had that included in my presentation, but I took it off because there was a lot of IP involved there. But still, I would love to answer this question because this has been asked. So usually look at, and this is general in nature, no? So a 5 bedroom, looking at 5 bedroom home, which is I'm talking about 5 bedroom, 5 ensuite, 5 kitchenette, fully self-contained, uh, good specs, not just run of the mill. So basically, 5 bedroom, if let's say each room, my always concept is, as you would know, your expenses on higher and income on lower side. That's the way I do, just to give you a ballpark. Then you can work from there, how much expense I have put or you have put, whether it is reasonable or income is I have considered less. But just to give you idea, each room say $250, into five, right? $250 into five, which is $1,250, you know, into 48 weeks. We have 52 weeks in a year. So there will be vacancy rate. You can calculate, I think it comes to about 98% or 2% vacancy rate, considering like 4 weeks, the full house doesn't, one of the rooms, 48 weeks, 46 weeks, whatever you think is reasonable. So 1250 into 48. Can someone do it for me, please?
60,000.
60 grand. Cool.
Yes.
Now 60 grand, and roughly construction cost, roughly, I um maybe around See, let's say $20,000 per square, three to maybe, but maybe anything between 450 to say 500,000, say 480, for example. I'm just randomly picking numbers, I don't know whether it is 480 or 500 or 450, but anything in between, so let's say 480 or maybe 500,000, like expenses on higher side, right? $500,000 for your construction, and um land, depending upon where is the land now. So if I have to do my numbers, my overall property costs were $750,000 that I built, including land, and 750,000 for a 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom, all inclusive. And this was built 2 years ago. The contracts was signed 2 years ago, right? So I'm talking about pre increase of construction, land cost, and whatever. So I built for 750,000, and I built 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom, and my average rent per room is $260 a week, and my vacancy, I mean my occupancy is almost 98%. So like only 98 times of the year, it is occupied. So roughly you look at my cash flow, 750. So let's say, so if it is 60,000, assuming 40% your running cost, because 20 to 25% your management fee, then you have insurance, then you have electricity costs, water costs. You can't charge a renter um, the utilities in these. This is the
Yep.
key, because if you can't give anyone a way to measure, you can't charge, this, right? So all
Okay.
up, so 40% out of say 216 to um, 48, whatever it comes, around 62 and a half, 62, 40% of this gone out of 25,000, say, gone out of 62,500,
Yep.
roughly, I don't know, $35,000 a year,
But
all
Vinay,
pay.
the percentages that you were mentioning earlier, I believe those were gross, right? Or were you talking about net?
No, those were gross.
Gross, right? So here the gross, like if we just consider 60,000 as the income and then divide
Mm,
that by 750, then our gross comes around 8%
mm,
on this particular project that you were mentioning.
My rent, yeah, 62,000. Yeah, correct. So as I said, I'm doing anything
Something.
between 9 to 12%. I wrote there, right? So I am
Yeah.
roughly at gross 9%, 9 point some. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but I think one key point to note here is like if you get a gross of 8% in any of the other residential property, then getting a gross with similar percentages in rooming is going to be a little bit disadvantageous considering the running expenses like the approvals, high property management cost, as well as for electricity and water. Like if you can't charge your tenants, then in that case it will be an recurring cost on the landlord, right?
Right.
Correct. So
Yeah,
gross,
so it has to be
that's why I
justified.
said
Yeah.
anything between you.
Mm,
That's why I said you need to select right specs, construction
right.
cost. You need to select the right locations for your land, right?
Yeah.
And then you see, yeah, that's why I said the question was how do you select your location, right? So I said
Yeah.
your numbers will one of the key inputs where you want to build. You can build anywhere. You can build in Preston today, right? But your yield is because land component is so high, construction remaining the same wherever you build. So yeah, you need to select where you are buying, what you're buying, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feasibility is critical. Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. Thanks, Vinay. This is very helpful.
Cool.
Uh,
All right. Any
George,
more questions?
do you want to share something here?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, Vinay, what is your utility costs? For example, what would be the electricity quarterly?
And the water quarterly?
I think roughly 6,500 for my electricity, seven grand, and roughly about,
Is that annually?
yeah, annually, yeah.
Okay.
And roughly, and then you put your solars, you know, to contain your cost. It's a capital expenditure, but then over a period of time, because these properties you tend to keep with you for longer, you know, then
Yeah, correct.
so you can reduce your costs there. Yeah,
Sounds good.
it's a very
Thank
good
you.
question. Similarly, when you build, you might want to consider, you know, reuse of your, you know, recycled water, putting a tank so that toilets can use that, you know. These are few considerations, yeah, you
Here
can
in New
think.
South Wales, you have to have one of those water tanks now. You cannot build anything without a water tank. I don't know how it applies to all the other states, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Great question, George. I think if there's no other questions, we can wrap this one. Thanks again, Vinay. It was a great session. I think again, disclaimer was there that everything provided is general in nature. So do your due diligence, run your number before making any financial commitment. But again, thanks, Vinay. It was great presentation, great strategy to explore.
It was
Sounds
very
good.
good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks,
Thanks
Vinay.
everyone for
Thanks,
joining
Dinesh.
as
Thank
well.
you.
No
Bye.
problem.
Thank you,
Uh,
boys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
reach out to Vinay. Anyone, if any questions, reach out to Vinay straight. Right? Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks,
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 guys.
Vinay.
guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
I'll
you.
stop the recording. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.